Shachar Shamai.
Hello,
Hello.
hello, hello.
Welcome and thank you for agreeing to share your experience here in the UK with me.
It's my pleasure. Come on.
So, let's jump right in. What was your
So
background
nice to see
before?
you, Yuval. For quite a while, right? My background. Here we are. My background before.
It's very nice to see you as well. I love you and you were my guardian angel in the last 2 years I'm here in the UK. And what was your
Come
background
on.
before coming to study here in the UK?
My background, right? So I studied classical singing. I did a BA and an MA in classical singing in Israel and Jerusalem. And but I always wanted to do musical theater. The problem is that in Israel, musical theater is not a big thing, and there aren't a lot of options where to study that. So I guess classical singing was the next best thing, and that's the route I chose. It started because I started to study singing when I was a teenager, and I did like pop and Israeli music and stuff like that. And when I was like around 17, my teacher asked me if I want to do a little bit of a classical, and we did a little bit of that. And I felt how like my mechanism, my voice is changing, and something is like forcing it to 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 do different things that it used to do before. And it was really exciting. So I think this what got me to classical singing. And then while I was doing classical singing, I was one of those who were considered not classical enough because I did a lot of like other things as well and sang like popular music and performed with the Sinfonietta Beersheva in like Hebrew songs and stuff like that, and in the Cinematheque with Michael Volpe and all of those things. And while I was doing my masters, I already started thinking about coming to England, and that's basically my background.
Amazing. Did you have to do any preparation before coming here? Dance, acting, whatever, for because being accepted here for the MA programs uh, is not an easy task.
Yeah, that's very true. So while I was on my second degree, I think on my master's, I started doing like community but half professional shows in English,
Mm.
musical theater shows in English in Israel. And that was a very good preparation because it got me to really work a lot on text and accent and obviously dance, but the dance wasn't like super high level. But at the same time, I also started to taking like dance lessons with a friend, with Avichai, and then with Lisa, who you studied with as well,
Yeah, the amazing Lisa Ben Yehuda.
who really prepared me. Yeah, she's amazing. She really prepared me, and she was like super strict, but at the same time, she kind of exactly knew where to get me and how, and in my pace, which was really harder later getting into DMA and being there with students like 5, 7 years younger than me who danced their whole life. I was like always in
Yeah,
pain, like for a
tell
whole
me,
year I was
tell
in
me
pain
about
just
it.
yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So yeah, that was my preparation in terms of acting. So I had those obviously of those experiences musical theater, but I think classical singing, although it's different than musical theater, it still involves acting. We took some acting lessons, and for me, I was always like the person who was very expressive in my singing. I didn't like to just sing pretty. I like to tell the story, and I would delve into those words, whether it was Italian or German or whatever language I was singing in, and express and tell the story. And well, I never did like monologues and stuff like that, though. So before I came to England, I took lessons with an acting teacher, who is lovely, Neta Shachar, and also with Salit Achimiriam, who are both wonderful. And they helped me to kind of like shape my monologue and choose monologues and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that was my preparation for auditions.
Because you mentioned the monologue, I want to share with you that this week I had a conversation with an Israeli guy who studied BA musical theater in Betzvi, which is our kind of best version in Israel for musical theater. And he wants to do an MA in musical theater here. And he asked me what kind of songs should he choose. And that was, I understood the question because I could ask the same question a few years ago when I was less experienced. It's kind of asking what did you wear for the audition. It needs to sit well on you to flatter you. It doesn't matter what you wear. It just need to flatter you. The same I feel with choosing songs, which is kind of a musical monologue or a spoken monologue. Would you agree?
Very true. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I came with like the most obscure monologue. I don't even remember what the show was, but it's very the character is like very aggressive. He ends up being killed by his family after he's abusing them for years and years, and he's very animalistic. And there's a lot of like parallels between him and like a dog who's sniffing and hearing, and it was like
Hmm.
very intense. And I love those things, but it's very far from what you'd see in regular musical theater, maybe except for Sweeney Todd, you
Yeah,
know.
amazing. And so you began your journey and you got accepted into GSA, Guildford School of Acting, and you found yourself coming to the UK and you came with your partner, or am I correct?
Yeah.
I'm sorry for the
Well, actually,
background
I was accepted
noises.
for three, and I chose to go to Guildford because don't worry about it. And I chose to go to Guildford because it just felt the loveliest, and I had really nice conversation with my interviewers, and I felt like, first of all, it was so beautiful, and it's like the campus is just like, oh my God, and you don't see those things in Israel. And for me, it was like crazy. And I thought to myself that maybe it would be also good to kind of like um, delve into the doing, you know, because I'm far from London. I need to kind of concentrate. It's not about like socializing or anything like that. It's more about just doing the work. So yeah, I came with my partner. We had some visa issues. He came before me, like a month before me. I wasn't sure I'm gonna make it to the first day, and I eventually got there for like maybe 3 or 4 days before the first week. Like how did they call it? The freshers week or
Yeah.
whatever.
Hmm.
And and yeah, and he found the house and he signed the contract and did all of those
Amazing.
things
Amazing.
without me. Was probably the worst month in my life, not knowing what's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
living with my parents, you know, which I love, but it's been a while since I lived for a whole month and a half with them. So yeah, and we arrived in Guildford, and you know, you do all the things you need to do, open a bank account and all this. Everything was so hard, so like different. It's like nothing you can prepare for or expect. It's like, you know, in Israel, you go into the bank and they just open the doors and you say, I want to open a bank account, and then they just do it. And then here it's like, oh, yeah, let's see, let's open the calendar. Can you do it in like 2 weeks time on a
Yeah.
Thursday? I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I'm here now, you're here now, let's just do it.
Coming from Israel, it's like landing to a different planet.
Yeah,
So
completely.
the visa was an issue, which is already one main obstacle, I would say, coming here from as a foreigner, also staying here. But let's touch about that uh, later. What was okay? So you started your school, arriving late. I also had a similar experience. I almost didn't start school because I arrived like one day before the deadline because of visa issues. And okay, so what would you say were the main difficulties? You did an MA 1 year.
Yeah. Main difficulties, I suppose, first of all, I came here thinking I know English quite well, and I spoke English quite okay, but you know, living in English is different, and also then, you know, facing a lot of different accents that you're not used to. To be fair, I prepared myself with a lot of British TV, but you know, you have so many different accents and everything is so fast. um and it's not only that, it's a lot of new information that you didn't know before. So it's not even about it's not even about the language, it's also the information, and sometimes it's a lot of like technical words that you never heard of before. So that was that. And then trying to express myself in English, I felt like my IQ just drops, and I just constantly felt like people conceive me as being stupid, which was never the case in Israel, you know. And then so there was that, obviously, and then, you know, the dance we already talked about, how hard that was and how physical it was. And yeah, I had an injury when we did a stage fight. I had an injury, injured my neck. I couldn't move for like 2 weeks. All of those things. I was like one of the oldest in class. I was 28, something like that. And
I was 35.
yeah, no, I feel
Could
you.
you
You know.
imagine?
But you know, I was never the very active type. I was like a fat opera singer.
No, I was always the active type. Otherwise, I wouldn't stand a chance.
I lost like, I think 15 or 20 pounds, 20 kilos before I came to the UK.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I gained them again after school. But well, that's how I meant to look. That's it. I just came to terms with it, you know. I'm not the skinny type. So anyways, yeah, it was hard. It was really, really hard. And then in terms, you asked me about the cultural differences. So I had a friend in class who we never got along because she constantly thought I'm being super rude. And I think she probably still thinks that somewhere in the world. And it's funny because, you know, we were 20, only 20 students. And out of the 20, I think only 5 or 6 were from the UK. We were all so international. We had people from Canada, Colombia, Norwegian girl, from Thailand, Hong Kong, you name it. And still, I felt so misunderstood a lot of the time. And I'm not the quiet type. So, for example, other foreigners were a little bit quieter, maybe. Or some of, like, obviously, if they're like from Canada or the States, or just really have really, really good English, then they never felt like communicating was a problem. Even if he was from Hong Kong, he did a BA in England before, or stuff like that, you know. So that was different. But for us who didn't speak English very well, or not as well, or didn't experience the culture before, it was quite tough. It was quite tough.
How far would you say the Israeli culture from the British one is?
It's so far, I think it's not on the same scale, you know? It's just completely different.
Because of what? What made you feel like... I felt like I'm an alien from a different planet.
Yeah. So I think I'm just used to saying my mind and speaking what I'm thinking. And here there's a lot of like filters and covers, and it's all done in a more sophisticated way. And I think we just didn't get it. Like, if you want me to do something, just tell me do this and that. Don't tell me, yeah, what you did was very nice, but whatever. I don't know. I don't speak that language yet. I mean, I'm here for like 5 years now. I think I just surround myself with people who accept the fact that if they want to be close to me, they need to take into consideration that I come from a different background and a different culture, and it doesn't necessarily makes me a bad person. It's just the way I communicate. And I think people who now are from this culture or another and know me, they know that my intentions are good, and they don't choose to get insulted by something, but trying to say, oh, he probably said that because this is the way you would say it in Israel, and I'm not supposed to get offended by that. And then they just communicate. And actually, I think a lot of them are now finding it quite liberating to just say what they feel with me.
It's so interesting. Also, Noah Bodner and Shimi Goodman and Michael Einav, who I spoke with, and all coming from Israel, exactly the same experience. Because when you experience it, you don't know, oh, okay, it's because I'm from Israel and I'm going to be perceived differently. You think something is wrong with you, or what am I doing here, or how am I supposed to communicate? Where is the where's the manual? Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. What about the
So for the
English?
first year, for the first year, for the whole of my studies, I felt like something is wrong with me. I definitely felt like I need to hold back. I need to really think 10 times before I speak, and I might offend someone.
Oh my
And
God. Yeah.
I felt like so careful. But no matter what I did, I still got it wrong.
Amazing. I felt the same. I felt the same. Only in my second year, I started feeling things were in place, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to understand the hang of it because I did the 2 years. Luckily, there was this program when I got there. Honestly, if I
Yeah.
would have done 1 year, I think it would be a waste of time for me. It was too much dealing with the not of the essence stuff, not the stuff I came here for. What about the English, the accent, the
Yeah.
RP, the? So you said the struggle with the vocabulary. What about the accents? How did you handle that?
You know, I did my best. I think I did quite well. I have a very good musical ear, and coming from learning different languages, and I already knew IPA, and kind of like it really helped me. But you know, you do your best, but in 1 year, it's really hard to change every. To be honest, for me, it wasn't the highest thing and the most important thing I put to myself. Although I understood that in order to work here, I need to really invest in the way I sound. I always wanted to be more of a teacher. And even when you write a cover letter to the schools and you say what you want to do when you graduate and whatever, I said that I want to go back to Israel and open a musical theater BA because it doesn't exist, still doesn't exist until today. But after being here in England and seeing the how saturated this industry is and how much I can still learn once I graduated, I just wanted to stay here because I feel like there's so much I still need to learn, so much I can still do, so much experience I can still gain from staying here that I stayed here, but I was still wanting to be a teacher. So that was always kind of like my dream goal, whatever. But in a way, I forgot it throughout my year because I think GSA and a lot of drama schools, they really kind of like show you a very specific path you need to walk in, and you need to do what you need to do and to get an agent and then do a lot of like auditions, obviously, and then get a job. And that's the aim. And then that's what makes you a successful graduate. And it gets into their books as a success, and they can take you off. And I got an agent fairly early on before the showcase when we did Avenue Q, and that got me to relax a little bit. Although I don't know if I ever needed that agent. And I think half a year after I graduated, I dropped him. I said, sorry, I don't want to do this. It's not what I want to do. I went to auditions and I suffered. And it was like, why am I actually doing it if I don't want the job? If I get the job, I will be even more in distress than I am now. So
Interesting. And how did you started teaching in the UK? So you could stay because of the visa issue with the partner. So that worked for you great. And then how did you get to work here? Now, 5 years later, you're teaching in several very, very good musical theater schools, which is amazing, coming from Israel only 5 years ago. How did you start? How did it begin? Who opened the door?
it's a good question. I think, first of all, the fact that I already taught before I was in England, it gave me a lot of like confidence. And also being there throughout my MA, I also helped my friends here and there with singing. I would come in when I heard them practice and they would ask me questions and I would help and I would play the piano for them and I felt capable because everything that was said to us in the group session, sometimes when you have like a singing technique lesson where everyone's there and each one is singing at the time, I heard exactly all the things that were picked up on. And I was like, yeah, I would do exactly the same thing. So it gave me a lot of confidence to say, okay, even here in the UK, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm hearing. And I also know more. I know more because they taught us a lot of things that I didn't know before. So it kind of created a lot of new connections in my brain because I knew a lot about singing, but I didn't know a lot about the anatomy. And then once they started connecting those things together, I heard it and I could get it. So even before our showcase, I knew because, the showcase was in September or something like that. And the school starts in September, like a week after or 2 weeks after. I knew that if I want to start teaching in good places, I need to do that beforehand. So we had a month to write our papers and whatever.
Oh,
and
God.
during that month, I started just writing emails to head of singings. I just went online and looked at this and that academy. Who's the head of singing? What's his email? Just send him an email saying, hi, I'm Shar. I'm just graduating GSA. I have this experience and I want to teach for you. And I was super, super lucky because even before I graduated, I already knew that I'm going to start teaching at least one day a week. And then I also had another interview in a school in London. I went all the way to London. I met the person. It was really, really lovely. We had a really good conversation. And we talked about singing technique and his approach. And we were completely in the same kind of idea. He's coming from a classical background. And he was like, I want anything but Estil. I don't like Estil. I don't want to hear about it. You do what you would do, but I don't want to hear about that, and don't teach the students. And I'm like, fine, whatever you want. I have, I did bel canto for years and years, so I knew all of that. And then at the end of our conversation, he was like, okay, so I just want you to know that I don't need any staff because I'm already fully staffed. The year is about to begin, and I have enough teachers.
Thank you for coming.
Seriously, I came it took me 2 hours to get to you from Guildford, and I'm sitting here and doing my best to, to kind of be focused and speak the best English I can speak, and I, all dressed up and being proper British, although he's Canadian. And then he tells me that actually he just brought me for nothing. So I was a bit disappointed. But, 2 weeks later, he called me and said, so one of my teachers just got a main part in the West End, so she's going to be gone, and I need you. And I started teaching 2 days a week there. So it was just luck, real luck.
Oh, wait, it's not just luck. I agree you had some help, but it's not just luck because you sat down, you knew what you were going to do, and you were proactive, and you sent those letters to several schools. And one of them replied. So just like a lot of interviews I heard during the Corona, Julian hosted a lot of GSA graduates, and the main theme was be proactive. Don't just wait for stuff to happen. So you did that.
Yeah, well, I knew I had to, I was older and I was I don't know, by then I was 28, 29. And, I spent all my savings to go to GSA, and I'm like, I need the money.
Okay, so I want to ask you, how did you fund it? Because that's a big challenge. A lot of people from Israel talking with me. It's like, okay, how do I fund it? How do I manage where do you bring the money from? Because it's expensive in terms of a pound to Israeli shekels. It's super expensive.
It's super. It's not. It's really hard to grasp how expensive it is.
So how did you do it?
So luckily, my grandfather opened a saving account when I was 0 and kept putting a little bit of money in there, and it grew. And it wasn't massive, but it was a little bit. It didn't even cover half of the studies, but it did something. And I applied for different funds and scholarships, and I got some funds from the PICE, the Israeli PICE, which is the lottery fund in Israel. and which was super, super helpful. And my parents helped. So I could kind of like on the verge of cover everything I needed for school and then kind of, but you know, you can't work while you do
Yeah.
the MA because it's very, very intense. So they literally helped me with every living expense, which is around the same amount you pay for school. So it's
Amazing.
double that, you know, crazy.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow. Okay. So you started in the first school. How did you get yourself to teach in other schools? Again, letters. Now you had more experience. You had your foot in the door.
Yeah, so actually that was the second school I told you about because when before I graduated, I already knew that I get into one school, and then that was the second school already. Um, and then from there, you just meet people. You know, you keep being proactive. You keep sending letters. You keep sending emails. You keep asking people around, and you know, there's it's a lot of coincidences and a lot of hard work at the same time because for example one of the schools I'm teaching in now, a friend who knew me and knew how I teach recommended me when she had to leave the
Mm-hmm.
school. She couldn't teach anymore. She wanted to take a year off or something like that, and then she recommended me, and that's how I got in the door. And once you're in the door, if you do a good job, then they keep giving you more work.
Of
That's
course.
how it works.
Amazing. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your project, about the Jewish Cabaret. How did that start?
Right. So, you know, in your MA, I don't think you had it, but in my MA, we had a module of writing a musical that Julian Wolford,
Which is like a glove for someone like you.
but I didn't know it would be. I mean, I didn't know that the module's coming. I did kind of like look forward to it because I thought it's cool. I thought it's really nice. There was something in me that kind of like was looking forward to it. And also, to be fair, I just remembered like maybe a year ago that I did a barter with a friend in Israel who used to give me piano lessons and I gave him voice lessons. But then before I came to England, knowing that I will have that module, I asked him to work with me on writing, on composing and writing.
Wow.
And I just remembered that like maybe a few months ago. So I did prepare myself to that as well. But anyways, you know, this module came and I did what I did and I wrote the songs I wrote and they were quite successful and people liked them. And until today, I get people mentioning those songs to me because they were super catchy and super fun. And the thing is, I really, really, really enjoyed that module. I just exactly like you said, was like a show that was called date.com that we wrote. My character was hidden in the audience until the very end of the show, maybe 10 minutes before the show ends. So I wasn't performing. I was just sitting there enjoying the musical we wrote, you know? And then I had my moment, went on stage, had my moment, sang my song, everyone remembered it, and that's it.
Amazing.
So
Sorry, I'm just gonna steal the show and continue. Thank you. Oh, bye.
it was like that a little bit because it was a very, very funny song. And and that's it. And once I graduated, I really wanted to keep writing. And also the way that we wrote was like very devised. The module was to devise together the musical. So I had this experience of working with other people on musical and people, you know, having different ideas and different experts. So yeah, so I once I graduated, I met a friend. Uh, it's a friend. We weren't really friends. We were like we knew each other. We knew about each other. Which is David Jamal, who's now a very good friend of mine and my writing partner for the last 3.5 years. But he graduated from RAM a year before I graduated. So Once I graduated, I said, why don't we meet and have a coffee? And we did. I actually remember the Costa we sat in. It was near Bishop's Gate, where he used to work. And I told him about my experience, and he said, actually, I would love to write. And and we thought that it would be interesting for us to write from our background, from our knowledge, which is like the Jewish culture, and that would make us authentic and relevant. And we looked at the Jewish calendar and we saw that the 3 months from the date that we met, there was a Jewish holiday Purim, and we decided to create a show around that. And a month, two later, we had the show, we cast people, and we started doing that. And one thing led to another. We did another production and another production and another production, and we became like a production company without being a company. And we had people who started working with us from the very beginning, who kept coming, kept helping us with other things, and the company grew, and we did more things. And I think a year and a half later, after the second Purim show, after the first one was sell out, and after it was a sellout, we did it again, and we sold out again, and it was really, really successful, and people really loved it. We said, this time we're going to be more British, and we booked the theater in advance. So it was March, something like that. We booked the theater for July, and we said, okay, now we have more time. We're going to do it properly, not like at the very last minute like Israelis do. Although, 4 months is not like crazy, but for us it's like 4 months, how much you can achieve with 4 months. So we looked at the calendar, Jewish calendar. We saw that there's Tu B'Av, which is like the Jewish Valentine's Day, the Israeli Hebrew Valentine's Day, which is around the end of July. And we just booked a weekend in a theater. We paid for the theater in advance. We had no idea what the show is gonna be. We just knew it's gonna be about love. And we wanted it to be in a devised process, which was new. Until then, we actually wrote the things ourselves, and then we cast, and how usually it's done. But this time we said we want to do it a devised process, and we cast 10 actors and actresses, 5 and 5. David was one of the 5 male actors, and I decided to take a step back and not perform. Until then, I performed in every show, but and I also directed, and I also produced, and I also did all the other things, and it was super, super stressful. So this time I said, no, I'm gonna take a step back. I can do the direction. I obviously am the composer and writer, and I don't need to be on stage. And this is how we wrote our musical, which was originally, we thought it's gonna be like a review show with a little bit of like different monologues from different shows, with different songs from different shows, maybe a few original things, but we didn't think it's gonna be like all original musical. And eventually, after a month and a half of devising work and doing a lot of like improv and different like writing exercises with the gang, with 10 people, or at least whoever could come to the rehearsal, do something that is under budgeted, then you can only ask the people to show up, but if they can't, they can't. And then it was just so evoking, and it just got us to start writing and composing. And we saw characters that we liked, we saw storylines that we liked, and we just put them together and created the show. And a month later, we had a musical.
Amazing.
So yeah, so that's the story for my theater company group. I don't know what you want to call it. And since then, we also have a hub that we invite different creatives to join, to meet every 2 weeks on a Wednesday. And we have slots in which people can show their things that they're working on and get feedback, which has been really, really lovely and really nice, in a way to meet other people and meet other creatives. And yeah, that's what we've been up to, really.
Amazing. I think, Shar, I think, Shachar, it's a very big success to be able not only to stay in the UK, but also make a living from your profession as a teacher and as a creator. And, you know, the Jewish Cabaret and everything, it's amazing. But most actors, you know, what would you like to order, sir? And you don't wait tables and you make a living out of that, which I consider a massive success. It's amazing. I don't know if you're aware of that. I think it's brilliant. So that's something very inspiring in my opinion, because a lot of actors I've spoken with, you know, they've been working, if they managed to stay here or went back to their countries in the profession, yes, but they need to work in other stuff in the meantime as well to make a living, because it's a very challenging profession, as you know. It's amazing.
Yeah, but to be fair, as a teacher, you know, I don't know. I think it's great. I super appreciate my work, and I'm super passionate about it. But the expectation to work as a teacher is not as working as an actor. It's a lot harder to make a living as an actor. That's the sad truth. And a lot of really amazing actors I know who teach with me, you know, they occasionally do the West End show, and then they go on teaching because this is the career of an actor. You work and then you don't work, and then you work again, or you
Mm-hmm.
wish to work again and you don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very unpredictable in teaching. There's always someone who wants to learn, and if you're a good teacher, you get jobs.
If you're good, you get work. Amazing. Shachar, what would you say your 3 golden tips for foreigner people wanting to come to England to train and work?
Such a hard question.
Let's start with one.
I think you need to know yourself. You need to ask yourself those hard questions of what am I good at? What do I really want to do? What would make me happy? How much am I willing to sacrifice to get what I want? And also, I always say to my students that you need to have, you know, those little like sensors, and keep them open and keep thinking and trying new things and see how you feel about them. Because I didn't know that I would enjoy writing that much, but it stuck, you know, and it's because I was open to it. A lot of the students in my year were like, oh, we don't want that, it's a waste of time, we paid so much money. And like, for me it was amazing, you know. So just keep your options open. You never know where things might meet you and where you end up. And I think the last thing is, as you said, be proactive and keep being positive, because I have another tiny story for you if you have the time. I don't know how we're
Please
doing
do.
in terms of time.
Please do.
You know, in the very beginning, just after I graduated, I still worked maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but the rest of the time I was fairly free, except for when I was starting like doing the cabaret stuff. But anyways, you know, I'm very hard worker, and every day that I didn't work for me felt like a waste of time. So I went on those Facebook groups, and there's like I don't remember exactly how it's called. It's maybe Saturday, not just Saturday covers, something like that. Something about covering for other people's jobs, really, okay? And then I saw a message from a singing teacher who I never heard of and never knew nothing about, and asking for a cover in Reading, not Reading, in Newbury, I think. It was, yeah, Newbury. I had to go through Reading. It's quite far. It's like at least 1.5 hours from Guildford to get to. And then, you know, they picked me up with a car. Like, it's not like I could just get there. It was like traveling to, you know, from Jerusalem to Haifa, something like that, to cover for a person. The money was okay, but for me it was like, yeah, like, let's do it, because why not? It's a full day of work, and I get to meet other people, and I do what I like to do. So I did. I had a lovely day. And, you know, as I told you, I don't keep my mouth shut. And I didn't criticize the person. I didn't criticize their teacher because I thought they're really good singers. But I just kind of like, I was saying what I was thinking is them to be very, very muscular and very chesty and belty and strong. And what I found that they're lacking at is like more head voice, much more stretch in the vocal folds, all of those things. And that's what I focused on. And this is also, you know, my background and something that I'm really good at. So I just told the head of the school about that, and she was like, oh, that's interesting. And that. What I didn't know that the guy was working there for like 10 years. He's a super established teacher who used to work in GSA, Mount View. He's currently teaching in like, you know, amazing places, and is super professional. He plays the piano super good, like a lot better than I do. He's like that. So that's the person I covered for, you know? I didn't know all that until one day I got a Facebook message from him, and he was like, Shar, I'm doing a workshop of 10 days in Holland. Would you like to teach with me? I was like, what? Of course I will. Like, yes. When does that happen? And then I obviously met him and we spoke, and he was like, I asked him, why did you come to me? It's like, I asked my students what you did with them, and I really liked what I've heard, and they were really happy. So I thought,
Wow.
yeah, he's a good nerd. And that's just for one cover. And, you know, a year and something later. So you just never know where those things come from.
Up and happy. That's the approach. Up and happy. Amazing. Amazing. Shachar Shamai, thank you so much for sharing the difficulties and also the good stuff and everything you came across in your 5 years in the UK. It's amazing. I want to give you a big hug for Shabbat with my red nose.
Love you, Yuval. Miss you.
And this is a very good time to say thank you again for the lovely song, I'm Gonna Have a Baby. You wrote and composed especially for me, that I got to sing and perform in my online the show that we did when I graduated. It's crazy still.
Yeah,
I'm
your
saying when I
showcase.
graduated my showcase, it's like what? So yes, I'm graduating as
It's
we
happened.
speak.
It was such fun to work on that with you, but I wish we will still kind of like record it properly at some point.
Agree. Agree. Thank you so much.
Looking forward to it.
Love you. Shabbat shalom. תודה
Bye,
ענקית.
darling. Shabbat
ביי.
shalom.